Hey, Miles,
Yeah, Cam?
have you ever heard of The Thing?
We're not supposed to talk about that thing, man.
What do you mean we're not supposed to talk
We
about
kind
that
of
thing?
swore an oath about that. Oh, especially in front of somebody like Steve.
Hey, what are you guys talking about?
We're talking about that, what was that?
I
the
said
hammer
The
guy?
Thing.
The hammer guy?
The Hammer Guy? No. That's something else.
John Carpenter. Yeah, the thing. That's what we're talking about here.
Yes.
Hello, friends of the podcast, and welcome back to Inconceivable Media. I'm Cam.
I'm Miles.
And I'm Steven, who is not stoned this time.
Well, thanks for coming back to joining us this evening. I'm sure maybe I'm stoned this time. I don't know.
I'm just rubbing off on you. It's okay.
And yes, that's right. This week we watched John Carpenter's The Thing. Classic sci-fi horror. Yeah, for those of you that maybe don't know, The Thing is a 1982 horror film that follows an American research team in Antarctica where they come face to face with a horror not of this earth. And then it makes them question if they are all who they say they are. All right, so I've seen this a whole bunch of times. And have either of you seen this before?
I've seen it once all the way through, and that was a long time ago. So this is, I wouldn't say a fresh rewatch because I do remember a lot of what happens, but it certainly is a closer to fresh rewatch.
Ah, I see. And what about you, Steven?
This is the very first time I've ever seen it. I was actually planning on watching it because recently, while scrolling through my TV options, I saw that it was streaming. And I said to my significant other, maybe we should watch this sometime. And she said, oh, you gotta watch that. It's great. Not only is it like scary and it's kind of like an Agatha Christie whodunit, it also has, I would say, by today's standards, comical special effects.
I suppose I could, I can see that. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the special effects, but we'll go into depth on that in a little bit.
Personally, though, I think the Thing would have loved the Monte Cristi much more.
The what?
Monte Cristi.
Monte Cristi?
Yeah, you know, the sandwich.
Oh, that's a Monte Cristo, but
close enough.
okay. Why specifically the Monte Cristo sandwich?
Because Steve said Kristen Christie.
Oh, because Agatha
Agatha
Christie. Not your best work, this.
No, I'm warming up here. It's a little cold, so I'm still chilled. I need to thaw.
Well, all right. So now that we've got a fresh watch under our belts, what did everybody think of it?
I loved it, honestly. I think it's a great example of how realistic, or what do you call it? Not real special effects. Non-digital.
Non-digital, non-CGI special effects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It makes it so much better.
Yeah, and while I said it was comical, I also enjoyed them quite a bit. You could tell that there was a little bit of, I think, claymation. And it was done with, what do they call those, like, mechanical...
Animatronics. Yes.
Animatronics, claymation, and a lot of latex, rubber, and fake blood.
About 10% of the budget for the film went towards the special effects, who were created by Rob Bottin, and we'll get into that once we're really diving into this. So, with that said, is this a movie that you would recommend to other people?
Most certainly.
Absolutely.
Would you put any... is there anyone that you wouldn't recommend it to, or any kind of you might enjoy this but type things.
Oh, absolutely. I think all throughout, the fact that they're using so many bloody, I would actually say it's almost gory effects. So because of that, I wouldn't really recommend it to people who aren't very good with gore. Let's be honest here. There's a lot that goes on, and people who don't like, I guess you could say body horror almost, would probably despise this. Or if they don't like the bending of reality, they would also probably hate it pretty thoroughly.
I think this movie, like I said earlier, had some Agatha Christie elements to it. I remember reading an Agatha Christie book for a novel study in junior high, and I think it was called And Then There Were None. And it's kind of a similar situation. Instead of the Antarctica at a research station, it's a group of people that are isolated on an island in a mansion, I believe. And where it has like the same elements is that nobody trusts each other because no one knows who the murderer is, or parallel, no one knows who the thing is. So, well, I would recommend this movie to a lot of people. The people I wouldn't recommend it to would be someone like my mother, who loves Agatha Christie whodunit, but will not love the amount of gore in the film, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, with that in mind, we're going to go off on a little break, and then when we come back, we're going to jump into the spoilers. So, for anyone who hasn't watched this movie, there are plenty of ways to watch it. And yeah, we'll see you in a little bit. And welcome back, everyone. Now we're going to hop into a deeper discussion with plenty of spoilers. So, a quick recap of the film. We are following a team of American researchers in an Antarctic research station as they are visited by a dog and some Norwegian researchers that are hell-bent on killing this dog. The dog later reveals itself as a thing, an alien organism that is capable of imitating any life forms it comes into contact with. And then what follows is a race against time as more team members are isolated and consumed to create more things. Will the remaining humans be successful and destroy the threat, or will the things win and threaten the entire planetary ecosystem?
So I think in order to not get too confused, we should call the aliens the Johns.
The Johns? Why the Johns?
Because we might be talking about something and say the thing, because I do that quite a bit because I kind of forget the word.
Oh,
so
I
if
see.
we call the alien the Johns for John Carpenter, it kind of works.
Fair enough.
What were you discussing earlier? The thing, the Johns, they look like the not the
Cronenbergs, right? Cronenbergs, yeah.
Yeah, I was sure Cronenberg was going to be involved in this film.
Yeah. Surprisingly enough, no. This is John Carpenter. I don't think that this was the first big thing that John Carpenter did, but it's definitely one of the ones that he is really well known for.
It couldn't have been the first thing he did because he's a carpenter. It would have been wood.
No, wait a minute. This isn't the first horror thing that... what? There's another franchise that John Carpenter started, right?
Avatar?
No. I mean another, like, horror franchise. Like, not Friday the 13th, but one of those other iconic ones. One of the slasher ones.
I wouldn't know, man.
Carpenter, he did a number of vampire movies.
Uh-huh.
But I believe he also did the slasher flick Halloween.
Halloween with Mike Myers, right?
Mike Myers.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
baby.
Okay, not that Mike Myers.
It would have been way worse if it was.
All right, so obviously with Halloween, because I know Halloween started in, like, before, like, the late 70s or something. I haven't seen any of the Halloween movies, but I know of them. I feel like that's probably something that we should fix for next year.
Maybe.
1978.
1978
was when Halloween came out.
Okay. And this was 1982 that The Thing came out. So already well versed in doing horror things, John Carpenter was.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, it was not also the first time he worked with Kurt Russell. He also worked with Kurt Russell in another film. I think it was either Escape from New York or Escape from LA.
I think it would have been Escape from New York, because I'm pretty sure that was the first one. That's
okay.
Snake Plissken?
That's I was going to say Snake Vargas, but no, you're right, Snake Plissken.
Yeah.
Wait, wasn't he on a plane?
What?
That's the wrong snake on the plane.
Yeah, No, we are way off the mark on that one, Miles.
I'm sure I could have hit it with a flamethrower.
Something that I actually quickly want to point out about this movie is that, so it came out in 1982, so this would have been right around the time that a whole lot of sci-fi things were taking off, because The Empire Strikes Back had either come out, I always forget if it's 1981 or 1982 when The Empire Strikes Back came out, but anyways, that had already come out, and Star Trek the Motion Picture had then come out, and then I believe this opened up like a week or two around the time that Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan came out. So the interesting thing with The Thing is that even though it's a classic, everyone refers to it as a classic horror movie now and everyone kind of loves it, it was trashed when it came out and no one went to go see it. Like, it bombed badly.
Really?
Yes.
I don't know, the bombs were quite effective.
I know, right? They were very, very good at destroying their base camp.
I mean, to be fair, they literally destroyed everything they had, so it kind of works out that way.
But yeah, it was quite interesting that even from like a lot of the critical reception to it was just, people thought that it was just right. I remember one of the big things that people really didn't like about it was the ending.
Really? I thought it had a great ending.
Well, it's great as far as horror goes, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know who, if all of the things were destroyed, right?
Right. And if there's still any remaining, or if any of the two people that are left at the research station, if either one of them are still the Thing. I think that's I think you could really divide moviegoers and audiences into two camps. And one camp that really likes the obscure ending where you have to draw your own conclusions and you're okay with not knowing what happened. And the other camp that absolutely hates that camp and says, no, I want everything to be defined. I don't want to make my own conclusions. I want you to spell out for me exactly what happens. And, the people that hate the obscure endings. I'm kind of okay with either. I learned a long time ago that I'm not going to be burnt by obscure endings, because every once in a while you're watching a movie and you're waiting for it to be drawn up into a nice little tidy package, and then it doesn't happen. You get the obscure ending, and you just have to be okay with that and say, yes, I'm going to draw my own conclusions and be okay with not knowing exactly what happened.
You guys don't know how it ended?
I know how it ended.
It makes perfect sense. So, what's his name?
Which
Copper
one?
guy.
Are you talking about the doctor, or
no,
are you
no,
talking
Copper
about
guy? The
Russell?
Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell is human, and he found out that the last survivor was actually a Thing.
You think Keith David was a Thing at the
Absolutely.
end? Why?
Because they were using all of their J&B bottles to make Molotov cocktails.
And he still...
So he took a swig. He faked. Kurt Russell faked a swig and passed the bottle off to Keith. And Keith grabbed it, drank it, and acted like it was a normal thing. Because the Thing wouldn't know that they don't drink gasoline; they only drink alcohol.
So are you saying at some point in the movie they took all their Scotch bottles and filled them up with gasoline?
Yep, because they were not planning to live.
Did you see this part, Cameron?
Well, they don't have that part. All we see is that he has, in addition to the dynamite charges, he also has all of his remaining bottles of Scotch set up as Molotov cocktails.
Oh.
He's got the fabric soaked, or the kerosene soaked fabric inside them, because you see him light up a stick of dynamite, throw it in there, and then he lights the rag, and then he tosses that in afterwards, and that's where you get that nice big explosion.
I see where you're going with that. From what I understand, there was actually multiple endings filmed for this, and Carpenter decided to go with this one.
Yep. Basically, the option, similar to what Miles and I talked about with a film last year when we were doing The Plague Dogs, about how there is what we got in the film and then there's what there is in the book. And they are like sort of the same, but one of them is bleaker than the other. Remember that?
Yep.
So basically, for the original ending, in some ways it would have actually been closer to, again, the short story that this is adapted from. Because at the end of Who Goes There, for those of us listening who decided to listen to me read that short story, at the very end, when they take down the thing, there isn't this question of, oh no, who's still a thing? It's very much a, oh, thank goodness we killed them all. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing that we didn't allow it to get off of this continent and things like that. And there very much is a, we are going to survive to tell the tale type ending. And that was what was going to happen. And then John Carpenter was like, no, I like it better if you don't really know. And, well, all of our heroes died anyways. It was a Pyrrhic victory.
Interesting.
And it was that decision to make that ending that gave it all of the issues upon its initial release. I almost feel, man, it feels weird to keep bringing up Inception. Because we've brought that up like almost every episode this month. But I feel that Inception was a conversation changer in terms of the movie or the film viewing public being more okay with those types of endings of, oh no, do we really know? No, we don't know. Because Inception was so big, and one of the iconic things was the very end where the top wavers and it's like, oh no, is he still dreaming or is he actually awake, sort of thing.
Yeah, and so then again, there's two camps, one that loved the ending of Inception and one that hated the ending.
But the thing is that everyone still, well, I mean, Inception was huge, right? Everybody saw it. Yeah. Whereas no one kind of went to go see The Thing, but not everybody goes to see horror movies. Like right. That's just an accepted thing, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to go see a horror movie. Mm-hmm. No, not everybody went to go see Saw, despite the fact that everyone talked about how they went to go see Saw or the Blair Witch Project. Not everybody saw those movies.
Yeah, I didn't really like either of them, to be honest, but
I still have not seen either of them for various reasons.
You're not missing too much, man, so
I don't know. Every time I hear about Saw, like any of the Saw movies, I kind of have that reaction of what you had brought up at the beginning about who you would recommend this to, because like it's not, I don't have a problem with body horror or gore. I do have a problem with gore porn, as people would call it, where it's like very much the entire point is that you're watching someone getting their skin peeled off and things like that. And you are deliberately being exposed to that. And I just sit back and I go, yeah, that's okay. I don't need to watch that. Mm-hmm. I have a good enough imagination. I don't need to watch a whole movie about this.
Yeah, same.
I think I saw both those movies in the theater, and I remember thinking Saw was uncomfortable to watch, but I remember saying at the time it was a good movie because it gave me a lot of fright, a lot of jump. It's got a lot of spook humor. In hindsight, you have to really be a horror fan to like Saw, right?
You have to be a special kind of horror fan.
You have to be a special kind of horror fan. I think it has absolutely no rewatch value. Like, I would never watch any of those movies again. But at the time, I remember thinking, yeah, that's a horror movie, and it's everything you expect a horror movie to be. On the flip side of that, the Blair Witch Project I thought was amazing. I thought it was just a beautifully done, low budget, scary movie. Side note: the second Blair Witch Project was a big budget.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the first one, the first Blair Witch came out, and it was, I'm sure the budget was, I don't know, a couple $100,000, $10,000. I don't know. The thing might have been shot with 2 camcorders and 4 actors. Like it was 3 actors and like a tiny set. It was very good, and it was made to look like a home video. And I don't think there was really any body horror or gore or anything. It was all psychological.
Mm-hmm.
That's what made it good. It was all psychological. The second Blair Witch was just another horror slasher, big budget one, right?
Yeah.
Not really understanding the appeal of the first one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was like they were made by 2 different, like they really had nothing to do with either film, right? But before we get back to the thing, I would highly recommend the Blair Witch Project, the first one, and only the first one. Because it's not what you think it would be. Like, it looks like it was really done in that great shockumentary or documentary or mockumentary style. I don't know how you describe it.
Well, it's found footage, right?
Footage,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you like found footage, I didn't really like the Blair Witch myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought it was okay, and it did actually spark a lot of good movies that came out.
Mm-hmm.
So I would actually recommend people watch Marble Hornets.
Marble Hornets.
Yep.
Yes.
Never
But
heard of it.
Marble Hornets is a little different because it's actually in a genre of its own known as unfiction.
Unfiction.
Yes.
Okay.
Are we going to be covering Marble Hornets next October?
Actually, we might do it beforehand because I'm going to be doing it with Gareth. And Steve, you want to take along, by all means.
Quite possibly.
I'm not going to lie. Marble Hornets is one that takes a long time to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we're probably going to do it in about 4 takes.
Is it that long?
Well,
kind of.
Is it a TV show or a movie?
It's a YouTube series.
It's an unfiction, so it actually spans across a bunch of different media platforms. So part of it's on YouTube, part of it's on Twitter, and part of it's somewhere else.
Really?
So it's kind of its own thing.
It was a very interesting phenomenon back in, the late 2000s, I think is when they started it? Like 2008 or 2009 or something?
Mid to late 2000s, I think it was. And it went for quite a while.
Yeah. It went for a couple of years, which, I mean, as an internet thing from that time, because it was all by the same people.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was all done by the exact same people, and they just kept to this project.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty interesting thing to watch. But it just takes a while to watch it all. Like, you could sit down and watch it, like, all in 2 nights.
Yeah.
But I know Gareth is busy, you're busy, I'm busy. Mm-hmm. So it's going to take a little time.
Anyways, bringing ourselves back to the thing. So, what were some things that did jump out that were things that you really liked? I mean, we have talked about the Cronenbergs, we'll say.
The Cronenberg monsters. The special effects I thought were really, really well done. They were entertaining. Like I said, by today's standards, you could certainly tell they're early 80s special effects, but I thought they were still really good. It was no Return of the Jedi good or Star Wars, but it was pretty good, right?
So the guy who did the special effects that they brought in for this, I had mentioned before, Rob Bottin. So Rob Bottin was a pretty big deal at the time because he also did the special effects for previous movies. He had done The Fog also with John Carpenter, and he also did the practical effects for RoboCop and Total Recall.
Wow.
So that would have been like designing the ED-209 and putting together the suit and everything for RoboCop. Mm-hmm. And then all of the funky alien designs that they have in Total Recall when they're on Mars.
Wait a minute. Is he responsible for the 3-titted alien?
I don't know specifically if he
I'm just saying, whenever anyone thinks of Total Recall, the first thing that comes to mind to recall is the alien with 3 boobs.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the other one that I would have thought of would have been Get Your Ass to Mars.
Get Your Ass to Mars, or Johnny Cab.
Yeah, or that.
Yeah.
Robert Picardo as the Johnny Cab. So the funny thing, actually, it's the special effects were how I was kind of introduced to The Thing. So I didn't see The Thing until I was an adult, like 2012 or 13 or something, because speaking of YouTube stuff, there was shoot, I forget what his first name is, but a Hardcastle, a guy who does a lot of claymation, he made a send up to The Thing that was called Thingu, because what he did is do you remember Pingu?
The penguin?
Yes. The claymation thing.
Oh, yes. I remember now.
So what he did was he made a nice little 2-minute animation on YouTube called The Thingu, and it's all of the cast from Pingu. So Pingu, his parents, his friend, that I think was like a lion seal or something like that.
Yeah. And
he just does the entire the entire movie of The Thing, but with all of the characters of Pingu. Really? And it's all claymation, all of the effects, you should look it up and you should watch it because it is amazing.
I remember, yeah. Now that you say claymation and everything, yeah, I remember that was a pretty amazing series, actually.
Yeah, well, and so that was how I was introduced to it, because the places that I was hanging out on, all of a sudden people are like, "Oh my goodness, you should see this great thing." And do you remember Pingu and do you remember The Thing? And I'm sitting there going, I am aware of both of those things. I've only watched one of them. And then I watched it, and then I sat there and I said, I really need to go watch The Thing now. I feel like I probably just had the entire movie spoiled for me, but I'm going to go watch it anyways. But before then, when I was a kid, we went to Disney World for a vacation one time, and at these theme parks, they have shows that you can go to, like you can go watch stunt shows and things like that, where they kind of walk you through the process of how they do these things in the movies. Mm-hmm. And so one of them was a special effects show, where they kind of walked through a little bit how they'll do some things, and then they'll show clips from movies. And they showed the clip from The Thing where they're operating on the guy, and when he goes and he's putting the defibrillator pads on him and loses his arms.
Oh, that was a great scene.
Yes, it was. And little 9-year-old me, like, kind of almost shit himself from fear and from terror. Yeah. That always sticks out to me, because we're just sitting there watching all these creepy things, because it's a special effects show and they're focusing on more horror stuff, because that's where a lot of great practical effects happen. Right. And then all of a sudden they just show this bit from The Thing, and I'm just like, you bit his arms off! That's the reason why it took so long for me to finally watch the movie.
It's a great scene, honestly.
Yeah, it was one of those scenes that gave me that horror movie jump, where I jumped when it happened. Mm-hmm. And I apologize to my upstairs neighbors, but I may have let out a little bit of a but only in a louder and more shrill and feminine tone.
The female Morty, got it.
Female Morty, exactly.
Oh gosh, Rick.
Well, I feel that this kind of leads into a fun discussion. Like, so we were talking about the ending and everything, right? Mm-hmm. So when do you think people did get turned? Matt? Do you think? When do you think Blair, for example, got got, we'll say.
Got thinged.
Because I feel that by the time they go and they lock him up, like he's going and trashing everything.
Yeah.
I feel that by that point he'd already been turned and he was no longer a human.
Well, I'm not sure when, but if he was already turned at that point, why was he smashing everything? Why was he smashing the helicopter as well as the radio equipment?
Because he was looking for the parts to build his own spaceship.
You think so?
Clearly.
I thought that he was still with it, and he still hadn't been turned, so to speak. And he realized, because he was the one that first realized what the thing was. And he was the one that ran all those scenarios through his computer.
Yeah.
And my impression that he was doing that so that no one had the chance to fly away and spread the thing to the rest of the population, and that no one had a chance to use the communication tools to get help to come in and help them and spread the thing to the other population. So I think that he got after he had been locked up there for a long time.
So my thoughts on this is more a bit in line with how the plot turns out in the short story, Who Goes There, where they have a similar reveal of, oh no, the thing is going around and doing stuff. So I mean, in the film, the dog's walking along and then it has an interaction with a person in shadows, right? And in the short story, there's one of the characters is just by himself looking over some technical stuff and readouts and things like that, and he's in the same room as the thing that is thawing out. And then it mentions how he didn't notice the creaking in floorboards, and then the chapter ends, and then the next chapter starts, and he's like, oh no, the thing got loose. And then, of course, at the end of the book, we find out that, yes, he had been turned, but Blair had also been turned at a certain point, even though he was coming up with all of these different things. So I think that somewhere between him interviewing Clark and like interviewing everyone and coming up with all of this information, and perhaps him running the simulations around that time, I almost feel that Palmer got to him. I almost think that Palmer would have been the one who was turned first. And then he somehow got to Blair, and then Blair tries to keep up the facade, but shows it as a bit of a breakdown. Because one of the other interesting things also in the book is, so when Blair's crashing everything, he's like, we can't have anybody come and see us. But they make a point in the short story when they talk about, should we go and destroy the radio? Because Blair mentions, I destroyed everything in the planes that they use. And so they say, should we destroy the radio? And they say, no, if we destroy the radio, then they're going to send rescue operations out to us immediately because they're going to think something's wrong if we're not making regular reports. So we need to continue making regular reports. Otherwise, more people are going to come here while we have a problem.
I see.
So that's my explanation for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the fun, right?
Yeah. Is it also possible that Blair, when he was doing all those computations and those scenarios he was running on his computer, was already turned at that point?
And he's just doing this to do research for the other Cronenbergs, right?
Yeah,
the other Johns.
He's trying to figure out. He's like, oh, well, all I have to do is get off this frozen chunk here, and the rest of the world will be turned into Cronenbergs within 27,000 hours. Yeah.
27,000 hours. How long is that in terms of days, I wonder?
Well, let me get out my handy-dandy computer. And was it 27,000 hours? Or
yep,
was
it was 27. Okay. It was 27,000. That number I do remember.
Divided by 24 is 1,125 days. So divided by 365 is just a little over 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah.
Dang.
That's not very long.
No.
Not very long.
Especially considering that in Plague Incorporated, it can take you like 10 to 15 years to completely kill everyone on the planet.
Exactly.
And that's assuming that Madagascar doesn't freeze you out.
You know, what I found really interesting is that when they mentioned it may have been buried under the snow for 100,000 years, and how fortunate was it that the UFO crashed on the most frozen, desolate part of the planet.
So they actually do talk about that in the short story. They believe that the aircraft was pulled down to the pole from the magnetic atmosphere somehow.
Oh, I see. The magnetosphere.
Yes.
Yeah. Like some of it is, it was written in the 30s, right? So there's a certain amount of things that we now know more about science and physics that it's like, yeah, that's not actually how that would work. But
No. The magnetosphere acts as a giant magnet, pulling chunks of metal from outer space to the poles.
I mean, that's part of the fun of things like that back in the day, is that you don't know everything, and so you can conjugate things that seem plausible enough for your fun little story, right? That's what makes a good story, especially for something horror, is that you sprinkle in just enough real sounding things that it convinces the readers or the person digesting your story that they're like, this is plausible enough that I'm now scared.
So that's actually something I do in one of my Hackmaster games, because one of my spells requires the use of coal to work. So what I do is I have my mage talk about the phlogiston in it. You know, this is a good chunk. It has plenty of phlogiston. And if you know what phlogiston is, before they found out that everything burns with oxygen, oxidization is the burning process, they thought it was actually the material phlogiston that was being used that creates fire.
Oh.
So phlogiston was the explanation for why when you burn something there is less material left over, which is, the whole oxidation process. And then, of course, that turned out to be bogus when they found out that there are certain things that when they oxidize, they actually gain mass, like magnesium.
Yes. When
magnesium oxidizes, it gains more mass.
Interesting. Did not know.
Isn't this fun, though? You get to learn things in this podcast.
Not only is it interesting, it's educational.
And it's not just pure terror, like, don't hug me, I'm scared.
Yeah, for those of you listening, the last time I did this was with Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. And, well, you can go listen to it if you want, but I certainly did not catch all the hidden meanings behind the dates and the references to British society and broadcasting.
Yep.
I thought it was just horrifying.
To be fair, it is pretty horrifying.
It is pretty horrifying. I showed that to a few people, and they also described it as horrifying. Yeah. It takes something in your inner core and twists it around and plays with it. It's... ugh.
It's that hidden knife that you didn't realize was still there.
Yep.
I mean, that's one of the things that I find. I think when something is good, it's because there are layers to it. So you
like
have
onions.
Exactly. Well, I mean, hey, I like onions. I know some people don't, but I do like onions.
Onions and ogres. Got it. Cam's favorite things.
So, I mean, what I was trying to get at with saying that things have layers is that you can enjoy something at a surface level, because even at a surface level, it's very well put together, and everything hits all of the right spots that you just go, I enjoyed that. And then someone will come along and say, did you notice such and such a thing? And there was this little bit in here, and that's why this ended up working a little bit more. And then you go, what do you mean? Explain yourself. And then they'll be like, oh, well, in this culture, this represents this, and blah, 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 blah. And then you go, oh, shit. Whoa, that's cool. That's great. I like that. Just tying in with your Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared stuff.
It's sort of like with the angelic number of plague dogs.
Yes, right. When you just like brought that up, and I'm going, what? Huh?
Quick side note. What's plague dogs? What is this thing?
It is a movie adapted from a book that was written by Richard Adams, the guy who did Watership Downs.
Uh-huh.
And it's...
Is that the movie with all the sad rabbits?
Yep.
Yes. This is another children's story that is also about sad animals. In this case, it's about dogs.
Oh.
You should go check it out, actually. It's really good.
I watched Watership Down during the pandemic.
Did you watch the Netflix series of it or the original?
I don't know. Maybe the Netflix series, because it was on Netflix, I think.
Was it like CG animated or was it cartoon?
It's cartoon.
Cartoon?
Okay, it was probably the original.
The original.
Yeah, it was a very sad story.
Yeah.
Sad rabbits.
Did it have like a lot of violence and blood and everything in it?
Rumbly humps and all that?
I can't remember what happened, but the rabbits just kind of slowly died, right? Like, they slowly get caught by different things.
They do, but there's also when they come into conflict with the other rabbits in their other what do they call them? Warrens, yeah. So the reason why we're asking is because in the original film, it's pretty violent. There's a lot of blood.
Oh.
And there's a lot of blood on the muzzles of rabbits.
Did it look like this one or this one?
This one.
Okay, so then, yeah, that was the original.
Oh, okay.
You got to see the good one.
Yeah.
The other one I started to watch, but I couldn't really continue because it wasn't the true story, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. It felt like it was missing things.
So
like the blood?
Yeah.
So, side note, a couple years ago, before the fences were built in the front and the back of my house here, I used to have rabbits live in my backyard all the time. I'd have porcupines walk through. There was one time there was like a woodchuck or a Richardson ground squirrel, I don't know what it was, came through.
Nice.
And one day, Hector the rabbit that lived underneath the cherry tree out back, and it was weird because I did an edible that day and I wasn't really sure if this was really happening or not. But this other rabbit came into the yard and Hector the rabbit and the interloper rabbit got into this royal rumble. You can actually see it on Facebook because I pulled my phone out and managed to record it. So you can see a little bit of it. And rabbits are vicious. Like, they hold on to each other. They give that rabbit kick. There was fur and blood everywhere, all over my backyard, until one of the rabbits, I don't know if it was Hector or the other, it's kind of hard to tell them apart, to be honest, gave up and ran for their life, and the other one was still pursuing it. I didn't think rabbits tried to kill each other, but I guess it was just males fighting for dominance or breeding right.
Probably territory.
Territory, yeah.
Yeah.
But there is something innately, internally disturbing when you see a cute little rabbit trying to kill another cute little rabbit. It doesn't seem like it's something that should be.
You gotta remember, there's two types of rabbits in the world. There's the cute little fat ones that look adorable, and then the other rabbit is the old wise sage that wants to tell you the way the world works. But by the time you realize it all, you're going to be the mad hermit. So,
what I was going to say is that the interesting thing is, as you're describing that, is sort of the reason, what the author was going for. I'm just going to quickly pull this up so that I do actually... Okay, all right. At first I was like, shit, did I say his name wrong? So, what Richard Adams was actually going for when he wrote Watership Down and when he wrote The Plague Dogs is that he wanted to have realistic stories that are still in that realm that children are familiar with. So, of course, having it based around animals doing animal things, but he wanted it to be realistic. He wanted it to be things that rabbits actually do. He wanted it to be things that dogs actually do. And so that means everything that they actually do is what's going to happen, which of course is why there's a whole lot of violence in Watership Down, because as you saw, rabbits can be really violent. And that was eye-opening for lots of people because lots of people don't know that.
It was very eye-opening. It scared the hell out of me.
A lot of people don't realize how violent the animal kingdom is. you know, it's one of the things that a lot of hunters like us, all three of us here, I should say, we kind of realize that it's part of nature, and a lot of, I guess you could say, more modern environmentalists completely disagree on, or, you know, they want to try to avoid of.
There are lots of interesting things about the animal kingdom that we as humans, as free thinkers, I suppose, I use air quotes for that, think that animals don't do because they don't have the same mental capacities as we do. And then, of course, it turns out, well, actually, no, quite a few different species do things that you wouldn't think that they would do because that makes no sense from like a biological perspective. Like same-sex relationships are actually surprisingly common among a whole lot of species.
Like in a lion's pride?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you can find them pretty much anywhere. You can find dogs that get along that way. And
male cats that pair bond.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. You find that all over the place, and it's normal.
Just like eating meat. A lot of people don't realize deer, squirrels, and a lot of other things will eat meat. If it's what they have, then that's what they'll do because it's how they're going to survive. Exactly, and a lot of people don't see that. But let's get back onto the thing about the Johns.
Can I ask a question about the thing?
Oh, absolutely.
What did you think about the setting? So the setting took place in Antarctica, but obviously it wasn't shot in Antarctica. I did a little bit of research, and it was shot up in northern BC, parts of Juneau, Alaska, and I guess refrigerated sets in Los Angeles for part of it, so it was kind of shot all over the place. Interesting side note, at one point the bus carrying a whole bunch of crew almost careened down a ravine and killed a bunch of them. Oh. Almost.
Well, good thing that they survived.
Yeah.
Wait, did they survive because they are the things? Are we now all the things?
Oh, man. Oh, well, there's a real twist for you, huh?
What the twist?
I found it to be very believable. I felt like they were filming it in the Antarctica. I've never been to the Antarctica. I've seen pictures of it. I thought they did a good job of portraying it as Antarctica. At no point... Actually, the only point where I thought it was silly was at the very beginning when somebody is pursuing a dog, or I thought it was a wolf, not a sled dog husky.
Yeah.
They're pursuing it across Antarctica, shooting at it. And I was like, why are they trying to shoot at the only wolf on Antarctica? There's no wolves on Antarctica.
And now you know why.
Now I know why. Because the wolf, or the sled dog, was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because your nose knows the difference between a rose and your toes.
That's true. That's true. What did you think of the setting?
Do you mean in terms of how they film it, or just we're setting this in Antarctica?
Did you find it believable?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I know that, well, in both the North and the South Poles, I understand that it is cold kind of all the time. There aren't really thaw periods, although I suppose that might be changing over the next few years, or currently changing. Yeah. But I feel that where they were, since they were fairly interior, since they were in the short story, they make lots of references to finding magnetic south and things like that. So again, this is in the 30s, so we're only like 20 years out of those of both the Norwegian and the British teams that were trying to map the South Pole.
Right. It had only been 20 years since anyone had actually made it across to the South Pole.
Exactly. So now they're doing all this research to find out what the heck happens when you're actually in the South Pole, now that we kind of know where it is. So they're fairly interior of the continent. So there being a whole lot of snow and not necessarily a whole lot of rock around makes a whole lot more sense. So if they were coastal, it's kind of tricky to really show it off as being realistic, because even though there's not any greenery, definitely have to be a little bit more careful about the landscape itself so that people won't just be like, that's not what Antarctica looks like in that part. They clearly did not fly a crew down there to film in Antarctica.
So, to be totally fair, I will say this about the setting. Watching it actually made me feel cold, which I've only ever really experienced with like very few pieces of media. But the last time that I remember feeling this cold was playing through The Long Dark. Because they do a good job of making the cold feel as threatening as it is. Mm-hmm. And this movie also did that. It did a good job of making you feel freezing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of games that do that, and I feel that they do that very well. There was one, kind of like a more exploration one that was came out like 4 or 5 years ago, and it's I can't remember if it is just called the Dyatlov Pass, but what it is it's an interactive game where you are in Dyatlov Pass in, I forget what mountain range that's in. But for those that don't exactly know why this is important, so back in the 50s, there was a team of Soviet skiers that were just going out for a weekend trip. We're just going to go out skiing, and they went to this part of the mountains that was fairly well known, and they were in a part that was called the Dyatlov Pass, and then something happened in the middle of the night at one point that made all of them suddenly just get up, not put on any of their clothes or anything, and just book it to a different part of the mountain. And they were only found like 2 or 3 weeks later when a rescue team went to go retrace their steps because no one came home. Yeah. And what do they find is they find a ruined campsite, and they find like various articles of clothing and things like that. And then they start to find bodies of the people that are all dead. And then there's this whole mystery of what the heck happened that just made these people just get up and just run away on a mountain range
in the freezing cold without, like, some of them without clothing.
Yeah, like no clothing whatsoever.
Yeah, I've read about this before in the past. It still remains a mystery, right? Like no one's ever really solved it, but there's been a lot of speculation that it was a Yeti. Or one of them went crazy with a gun and said, "You better run, or I'm going to kill you all."
Yeah. Or that I think there was something about there was a phenomena, like a natural phenomena, in terms of where they had set up their camp, and then just the way the wind was coming through the mountains, it sounded kind of terrifying, and so everyone just suddenly heard this noise and were like, "What the hell is that? I don't want to know, just run."
Oh yeah.
And all it was just the wind just picked up in a certain way, and it made a certain type of sound that just freaked the hell out of them. Gave them really bad ASMR or something.
So it sounds like my sister talking. Got it.
Yeah, I thought I had heard a year or two ago that there was something about how like scientists have gotten like slightly closer to figuring out what exactly it could have been, but it is still not 100% definitive. Anyways, so yeah, someone made a game where you can just be in the Dyatlov Pass, and there are creepy things that happen at various points to just kind of really give you that sense of, here's potentially what they might have heard 70 years ago when they were there.
This sounds pretty cool. Like a terrifying game. Not pretty cool, Miles. Not pretty cool.
Well,
it is cool.
The Long Dark is also a fun, terrifying game. The whole point of The Long Dark is basically you are on an airplane flying to Beaver Island, I think they called it, which is in the British Isles in the middle of winter, and something happens and your plane crashes. Oh. And the whole point of the game is you are alone on this island trying to survive.
Is that where you got the idea for that dread scenario you put us through?
Yes. Except you guys had it easy because you weren't alone.
Wait, Long Dark. Is that a Kojima game?
No, it's actually a Canadian game.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait, no, I'm thinking of something else. That's someone out
You're
there.
You're thinking
probably...
of Lost Planet or something.
No.
Like that,
It was it doesn't matter.
Let's get back
someone
onto
out there
the
probably
John
knows
thing.
what I'm talking about.
At any point, did they explain why they were at a research station in Antarctica?
Yeah, no, they don't explain it here, but there are lots of research stations still in Antarctica. I don't know what they're researching these days, but they have been there for a long time, and they are just there.
I noticed they were trying to get a hold of McMurdo Station, which I believe is one of the more famous.
Yeah, which is like still is around, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So they actually have like almost a full-on town down in the Antarctic now.
Yeah.
And like you can actually apply to go move there and live there.
Really?
And I've kind of thought about it because I think that would be really cool because I do like the idea of small communities. And
really
even have like
cool,
movie...
Miles.
Exactly. I kind of like the idea of it all. I don't know if I could do it because of being so disconnected from everything.
And also just being really cold all the time.
Yeah. That's one thing I do like about Canada. Like I do like the cold, but
you don't
I like it to
that
be
much.
I like it to be over as well. So
yeah.
But I do actually love watching like documentaries about the people living in the Arctic and Antarctica. Because it's just so crazy when they're like, yeah, it's blizzarding outside. Let me show you. So they walk into a room like, okay, we're going to close this door. So they close the door behind them. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like outside. And then they open up the door and it's just white. And the white comes in. And they're like, yeah, this is minus 60. I'm going to close the door now. And they close the door. And it's like, oh my God, that's terrifying. But at the same time, kind of beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing did a good job of conveying that the darkness and the cold and the snow. Like you said, I noticed at one point you had to put your giant sweater back on because you
were
felt
cold.
Yeah. It's not even that cold in here, but I felt it. So
Yeah, they did a good job with, I think, the set, so to speak. You felt like you were in Antarctica.
And also, like, in addition to the cold and everything, there's just this whole isolation aspect, right? Because there's no one that's going to come and get them, and there's so few of them there in the first place. There's what, like 12 of them? I think.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's it. So like it's dark, it's cold, and there's so few of them, and who can you really trust? And it just really gets to all of those various, like it just really creeps you out just because of that.
Yeah. You know, earlier you were asking when I thought certain people had been turned into things. Excuse me. Now, I read the synopsis of the movie, so I had a pretty good idea it was going to be a shape changer getting people. And I still tried to watch that movie and figure out when people were getting changed or getting turned. And I still can't tell you when certain people. I don't know who the first person to get it was.
Well, believe it or not, so there's lots of videos that you can watch on YouTube and things like that where people try to break it down and put together the individual scene fragments and things like that and go, see, this here was when this person was changed and this is when this person was changed. Some of them are pretty obvious. Like by the end when Blair shows up and is obviously changing Gary right there. Yeah. Or what happens to Palmer when not Palmer, Benning. Benning's the one who is with Windows, and then the thing starts to thaw out, and then they go outside, and it's like, it got Bennings, and Bennings is like, hey guys, I'm totally okay. And
he's got the long, elongated hands.
Yep. Oh, you got me.
You got me.
No, and this is John's allowed.
And this is how we turn the thing into a comedy.
My question is, what if the thing just wanted to show up and be like, hey, I came from across the galaxy to bring you advanced technology and the secret to world peace and clean energy. And it showed up and we're like, kill it with fire, kill it with fire. So maybe the thing is just trying to survive.
Weirdly enough, they actually postulate that in the short story. It's like someone actually mentions that, how do we know if this thing is actually evil? And how do we know that it might not actually be a benevolent thing? Which, of course, then gets into a kind of like racial essentialist thing because the description of the thing in the short story is that it has 3 red eyes and they always look evil. And one guy who is perhaps pretty racist and speciest is always like, that thing is evil. That thing came from hell and all this other stuff. And everyone else just kind of like goes with it. And they're just like, sure. I mean,
sure.
Why not?
Why not?
To be fair,
it looks different. Kill it.
To be fair, the thing was trying to build a spaceship-like device.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been trying to get off the Earth, and it could have been just trying to get away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe it did run a bunch of scenarios and found one where it could possibly infect the Earth, but it was just like, you know what?
This isn't
worth it. It's sort of like how the Tyranids act, actually. The Tyranids did take over one planet that was actually in the middle of being invaded by chaos, and the Tyranids were like, oh, those weird things over there, they're actually a predator. Well, we're gonna, like, try to get some information from it and, like, make our own species better. But then they realized, oh, shit, this is actually very dangerous. So we're just gonna, like, try to take all the resources from this planet and get the fuck out of here. So they actually did that, and they kind of left that planet to be just chaos, but of course the chaos energy couldn't let it leave because they didn't have any of the resources to leave.
So what? They foiled chaos because chaos was now stuck. It's like, we're just gonna... Oh no.
We got
they already stripped this planet. Shit!
Yeah, they stripped the majority of it, so...
How do we get off this planet now?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
That's hilarious.
I remember
that's a good way to contain chaos.
I feel like the devil's advocate saying that maybe the thing wasn't so bad, you know? Maybe he just wanted to go home.
How do we know that you're not a thing?
Who told you that?
No one told me anything.
Don't try to kill me with fire.
So, another comment that I wanted to make when you were saying who was first turned and whatnot is that John Carpenter is on record saying, I don't know.
Oh, really?
I made this movie. I don't know. I don't know who got turned when and where. That's part of the fun.
Oh. Well, that makes me feel better, actually, because if he doesn't know, I'd feel better about not being able to trace it.
I mean, even if he did know, I feel that he's a very savvy enough person that he would not actually make that public, because it's like, then I'm just going to ruin the fun for the people that like to keep guessing.
Right.
Because there are a certain camp of people that would be
pointing at me.
I don't know why I'm actually pointing at you.
That's not what I do. I point out the weird, obscure things.
I know. It's like, I kind of look over you and I'm just like, I don't know why I'm looking at you, because I don't think you'd necessarily have a problem. You know, I got a better question here. So, with everything being very, like, ranch...
Air click.
With all of the elements of this movie being fairly isolationist, what did you all think of the score brought to us by the very, very surprising Ennio Morricone, who you might know because he did The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, the Man with No Name trilogy.
Oh, interesting.
He's also done a whole lot other things, awesome things.
Click.
A whole lot of other scores, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you do this to us, Stephen?
Why did I do what? Oh, the buttons?
Yeah. Anyway, so what did you think of the score for The Thing?
Well, now that you've mentioned it's the same guy who's done a lot of westerns, I can kind of see that, because at the very beginning...
you can see sound?
I can think that. I gotta see that because at the very beginning, it almost sounded like an isolationist western. Like the music was starting, and I thought this could be like an 80s duster, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the little research station could have been an isolated, windswept little town where a protagonist comes to town. Or an antagonist comes to town. In this case, it was a space traveling alien. And at the very end, when it was wrapping up, and you know the credits are starting to roll, And again, it has that obscure ending where we're not sure what happens. We're not sure if the hero lives or dies, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was also very Western. So now that you mentioned it was the guy who did The Man with No Name trilogy, which, by the way, very good.
Mm-hmm.
What are those 3 movies in The Man with No Name?
So there's Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, and then The Good, the Bad, the Ugly.
The Good, the Bad, the Ugly is the last one?
Yep. It's the one that everybody knows.
There you go, Cameron. You got somebody you can watch your Westerns with.
Yeah.
I do not like Westerns.
You say that as if I watch a lot of Westerns. I showed you one because I thought you'd enjoy it because it was not a Western in a way.
It was okay.
Okay, what was it?
High Noon.
High Noon. Oh, no, haven't seen it.
Oh, dang. Could have had him on that.
I don't know if I have it torrented, but we'll find out.
You don't like any Westerns? Like
Not really.
Tombstone?
No.
310 to Yuma?
That one I don't know if I've seen, but
Appaloosa?
no.
Didn't like that one?
No.
Oh.
I don't like the Western ideology and the Western thing.
Doesn't like,
Mainly because I am kind of Métis, so it's kind of a cultural thing.
what was the Sam Raimi one that had Leonardo DiCaprio in it? Russell Crowe.
Yeah. Where it's a fast draw competition.
Yeah, that one. Shoot, what the heck was that one called?
The Quick and the Dead?
Yeah, I think that one is The Quick and the Dead. Yeah.
Yeah, Gene Hackman.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. I don't know. I think you might get a kick out of that one because it's more about the quick draw competition and not really anything else.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the Westerns, though, the ones that I've mentioned, they don't really have indigenous antagonists or protagonists, right?
That's true.
Yeah,
But
like I can see how you might
The
dislike something
Pioneer
like
era is
like
something I don't like watching.
Stagecoach.
The Pioneer era is something I don't really like watching either. There's like a lot of references to things that it doesn't really appeal to me, like drinking. It's not something I do.
Yeah.
Like I do like the idea of trying to work together, and I do like other things like that. But for some reason, like it just got overplayed a lot with my dad, and because he loved to watch his Westerns, all of them, and I would like come upstairs and see them on and sit and watch for a while and be like, I'm bored now. I'm gonna go back downstairs.
Yeah.
It's just not my source of media that I like. I think the closest thing to a Western I actually liked was Cowboys and Aliens. Like, and even then, I didn't even like it that much. It was just like, okay, this is tolerable.
Have you watched Westworld?
I know about it, but I haven't watched it. And it's a neat idea, but I feel like it's been done in something else I've seen, so I don't know if I want to watch that again. So, and there is a couple of others that came out that seem very similar that look like they've been done a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's something that can be taken for another an episode from a different time. So any other things that you want to add on for The Thing? Because we've covered, I think, all the really important things that I want to cover.
Let's talk about dialogue.
Dialogue, yeah.
What did you guys think about the dialogue in this movie?
I wouldn't say the dialogue was one of the stronger points. The dialogue was sufficient to propel the plot along, but I didn't think there was any great soliloquies or speeches. It was exactly what you would expect from a bunch of biologists, helicopter pilots, and meteorologists stuck in the southern frozen wastes. It was good enough. It was as good as it had to be. It had a few good one-liners, but I don't think it was... Well, for instance, what was your favorite one-liner?
Stay right there. I'm blowing this all to hell.
Oh, yeah, right. When he
has the flamethrower and he's got the dynamite in there.
Yeah, he's just... Yeah. I think my favorite probably still is when they torch... Norris after he kills the doctor, and then the head separates and it starts to leave, and then Palmer's like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
So one thing I do want to say about this dialogue, and it is kind of paired in with the actor choices in that, I found that everybody on this American research team did come from like different parts of America. So like you get the different accents altogether, which is kind of nice and interesting. I liked that a lot, and it's something kind of subtle, but I did really quite enjoy.
Yep.
Like, everybody did talk differently, and they sounded pretty different. They used different slang, I guess you could say. And I think that really added to it, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But it was something you could definitely miss.
My favorite one-liner was when Kurt Russell throws the chunk of dynamite at the thing and he goes, "Yeah, well, fuck you too."
That was pretty great.
Just to show how done you are with everything that's happening.
No, but Miles, that is a good point. Like, it looked like it was, like some people, you almost got the feeling that they were from Los Angeles, and some were from the Midwest, and some were from Detroit, and some were from New York, and some were from the South. Like, it was...
Some of them have diabetes.
Some of them have diabetes.
Beatus.
I didn't realize until the credits rolled that was Wilford Brimley in that movie.
As Blair.
As Blair,
When I first saw him, I actually thought he was Chevy Chase. And then Cameron was all like, "No, that's not Chevy Chase. Like, his movie is done like way earlier than that." And I'm like, "Oh, that does make sense. He would have had more hair then."
Yeah.
But it was definitely his like facial structure with the glasses, and it kind of felt like it. But I knew it was off. I knew it wasn't him, but it kind of looked like him.
I mean, when you said that, in my mind, I was just kind of thinking, wow, you know, that's a huge blow to Chevy Chase, considering that he would have been way younger and would have looked more youthful when this movie was made.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you.
I think he looked like Chevy Chase from Community when
he was
in his 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I did notice right away that this was Keith Richards.
Mm-hmm.
I caught...
Keith David. Keith Richards. All right. We got one of the Rolling Stones here.
Yeah.
Keith Richards,
well,
how far you've fallen.
To be fair, this alien did come from another rock. But no, I did notice Keith David, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I kind of forget that he doesn't just do voice acting stuff, because I mainly know him from his voice acting stuff, not his acting.
Which is funny, because movies like this are what Keith David was really known for, too. He would have not necessarily mainline roles, but he would do roles like this, and he would do them very well, and so everyone just kind of remembers him. And he has such an iconic voice, too.
Oh, he does, yes.
And then when, you know, voice acting became more of a thing, and then he just does more of that, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, Keith David! We want Keith David!" Because
I understand.
He's great, yeah.
He's got a great voice, and the way he speaks is a lot like you, Cameron. It's very audible, and you don't mishear it very much. You've got that really good voice, and it's one thing I wish I could have more of. Because I noticed when I listen to the podcasts and that, I do hear... I hear you perfectly, and then I come in and it sounds like I'm like 3 rooms away, kind of like making snide remarks about hearing you talking about something.
You gotta smoke more cigarettes. It'll lower your voice down here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
Either that or Cam starts giving you proper like voice technique.
Yes. Anything else you guys want to talk about? I think we basically have this wrapped up.
Yeah, I think that really gets to the bottom of it.
Yeah. I guess I would say in summary, I would recommend it. It's your classic 80s horror movie. They did a really good job with making it kind of like an isolationist piece where they're isolated. And it also combined a little bit of that murder mystery, like whodunit and who's the bad guy here. And it turns out, well, they're all the bad guy, really, because the thing can just kind of and the other thing is...
Turns out it was man.
All of us are the bad ones. Well, something I didn't understand till halfway through the movie was that it doesn't jump from person to person. It can exist in different
bodies
independently, and I think somebody said that at one point.
Yeah, he McCready makes mention of that. That's Kurt Russell's character, just in case anyone wasn't paying attention. When he decides to do the blood test is when he realizes when we were torching Norris and then his head came off and it was a separate entity, and then he's like, oh, so the thing can be in anything. So if I, attack the blood, then the blood will be like, no, don't attack me.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone else's blood will just be like, is blood. It don't do nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we should wrap it up here.
All right.
Thanks for coming out, everybody. Please, if you're listening, hit that subscribe button and give us a positive review on what you're listening to us on. It will just help out the algorithm and such. So, thanks for dropping by, or thanks for letting us be here in your basement, Steve.
Another good episode brought to you by Steven's Basement.
Yes.
Ah, yes.
I mean, that's what you should call the production company.
Steven's Basement.
It will not be the last time.
Yeah. Okay, have a good one, you guys.
Have a good one.
See ya.